Good morning and welcome to this latest edition of The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and you are listening to it on the world's greatest radio. That is TalkTainmenTRadio.com, which, by the way, is radio the way it should be heard. Our call-in lines are now open, and you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or if you'd like, you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And we can further along with the show. Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It is simply a compensatory counter-racist code guide. We will be taking excerpts from the revised expanded edition, which you can get. Mr. Fuller will be explaining that book to you later in the program, and where you can get your copies and all different communications with that. We don't have a donate button. Rather, we don't have a donate total yet. Working on that. Maybe sometime in this show I'll get a updated figure on that, but the second hour of the compensatory concept is a donate hour, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and hit the donate button underneath where the telephone number is, and you can donate any amount that you want to. The last I heard was $3,800, and that's about $300 short of what the stated goal is. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, you are still learning. Let's start off by doing this. Your book, which a lot of people have contacted me, I have tons of emails concerning your book, and people are really reading it, not just here in the so-called United States, but worldwide. Could you speak to your book, and how can a person obtain a copy of your book?
Well, worldwide, they can't get it right now, except just in Canada. And I'm working on the United Kingdom, which that should materialize maybe in about a month and a half. They've had some difficulty with the United Kingdom distribution. However, here in what we call the continental northwestern area of the world, the book can be gotten by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook and an additional word guide. Basically, it's supposed to be the same book. And actually, they have the same title. One is just an extension of the first one. So sometimes people get that confused. Also, I'd like to interject this. The updated version of the book that came out in 2016 is an updated version of the 1984 edition, which some people may have, and they haven't gotten the updated version. But the 1984 version of the book is still valid. The material in it is still valid because basically the situation has not changed substantially enough to make that book obsolete. So those who have that book is still valid. But there's more material in the updated version, the revised expanded edition. There's more material in it, but it's founded on the same basic principle, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which basically means that the book is directed toward the individual person. That's what that United Independent is about. You're united with what you, or should be united with what you intend to do, what you intend to accomplish, which is basically to replace the system of racism, which is white supremacy, with the system of justice, and then also go beyond that into the establishment of people that have never really existed before. And that's theoretically I'll repeat again, by going to producejustice.com. But everything in the book is addressed to the individual person, because the theory, the concept is, if you can solve the problems of each individual person, then you can solve the problem of all people in the most constructive manner. Then we'll have the kind of world that we should have had in the beginning, or whenever everything ran off the rails. I don't know exactly when that might have been, but people are nowhere near the quality of people that people should be. Nowhere near it. And there's no way that you can get to be quality people, universal man, universal woman, in a world that's dominated by something that's designed to be destructive of people, and that is this government called racism, the government of white supremacy, and the system of white supremacy. You can't get anything really done. You can't solve any major problem. That's the concept. Without eliminating that government, that system of doing things, that quality or non-quality of people interaction. You can't have racism and have a world the way it should be anywhere on this planet and have anything that comes near to that thing that we call peace and all correct interactions between people. It doesn't compute. It will not happen. It absolutely will be impossible for that to happen.
All right. With that being said, we're going to open up today's discussion on the sixth area of people activity called politics. We will be on that for a little while. I was going to do at least 5 weeks, but it is long, so we will do more than that, or we will do it until we get finished. How about that? Today's discussion will start off on page 176 of the revised expanded edition. And in particular, what caught my eye was visitation plan. Mr. Fuller, what is a visitation plan and how does it work in the system of racism and white supremacy?
Well, what I have on page 176, is, it says, overall, a constructive visitation plan adopted by non-white people can and should produce the following basic results. Now, what do I mean by a visitation plan? It means you visit somebody. You know, every now and then people do visit each other. They go to each other's places of residence for one reason or another. Well, you shouldn't have a visit another person, in my opinion, and based on logic, and considering all the conditions that non-white people are in on the planet in the system of white supremacy. You don't visit people unless you have a plan. And that plan should consist of should produce the following basic results. Improve the constructive intelligence of non-white people individually and collectively. In other words, if you visit somebody's place of residence, one of the things you should be visiting for, and I have 4 listed here as an example, but the first one I have listed is to improve the constructive intelligence of the people doing the visiting, individually and collectively. You're sitting around in somebody's living room, you should be improving your intelligence. That's a part of your visit, improving intelligence. By intelligence meaning what? Learning something of value. Learning something that you can use to help yourself or someone else. Do something that is constructive. Not just sitting around chatting about this and that and just whatever comes to mind. It's not connected with anything that has to do with improving oneself. All right, number 2 here is improve the quality of all interactions between non-white people in all areas of activity. In other words, you should have that in mind. And it lists the areas of activity, particularly primarily in the areas of economics, education, entertainment, and labor. Now, a lot of us visit each other for the purposes of entertainment. Now, that entertainment, every element of it should be constructive. Meaning, if you're passing around some type of drinks or something like that, what is in those drinks? What is the quality of the drink? Now, people might have a real problem with that because there are a lot of traditions and customs that you'll have to get rid of. You'll say, wait a minute, what kind of drink are you handing me? Is it drink that's going to improve, because the whole purpose of the village for the visit, see, we're talking about just visiting, just plain old visiting. The purpose of any visit should be to improve something. If it's not an improvement, you don't have any business having any visits, period. Just that custom of just, hey, let's go and hang out with somebody, that's what we call it, just hang out with your homies, hang out with your girlfriends and all like that. Let's get together. That's what we call it. That needs to stop. Stop, period. I mean, just quit it. Say, now, wait a minute. Am I going to leave this visit with some type of improvement in myself or in others? Am I going to be a better person as a result of this visit? If I'm not, I don't have any business putting my foot in anybody's living room or any other part of their house or place of residence, whether it's a hut or a tent or whatever it is. Have no business there. We call it socializing. That nonsense needs to stop. Why? Because it's really poisonous. We might think that it's innocent, but when you sum it all up, considering the kind of system that we're in and the kind of mindsets that has been imposed on us, little by little, over a period of years, our visits turn out to be something that's really toxic, because we are toxic people. In the system of racism, everybody is toxic. So if you're not real careful, you'll spread that poison anytime you make contact with people. And visiting is one way. That's just that old custom. I think I'll go over and visit my friend. That old custom carries a lot of poison with it, even when you're not aware of it on the surface, because we've been doing it so long, we're not even aware of how poisonous that is, unless it has some type of plan, some type of constructive plan before you do it. I'll continue on. Number three, help to decrease the number of circumstances in which non-white people are likely to engage in speech or action that promotes bickering, nitpicking, laziness, gossip, showing off, jealousy, etc., etc., etc. I'll list them again. Non-white people are likely to engage in speech or action that promotes bickering. In other words, little petty arguments, nitpicking. Start looking at somebody and saying something derogatory about them, sitting across the room. Now, we call it just, jiving or joking in the Northwestern Hemisphere and all like that. But sometimes it erupts on a Saturday morning or a Saturday evening or a Sunday afternoon into a fight or gunfire. And we know this. We know this, but we keep doing it. And we need to stop that little nitpicking. That's what happens when you don't have anything constructive to say. Then you start picking at each other. Laziness, that kind of goes with the whole package. Just, have lazy minds. Not only, I'm not talking about just, you're not doing any work or anything like that, but I'm talking about you start having lazy conversation. It's nothing constructive in the conversation. Just people just saying stuff. Just saying anything that comes to mind and all like that. And people and another thing, trying to force laughter, trying to come up with some type of joke or something to make everybody laugh. And everybody's pretending to laugh about a joke that's really not a joke. And just looking for things to say. You don't visit somebody to look for things to say. If you don't have anything constructive to say, you have no business visiting, period. Even if you sit alone looking out the window all day Saturday evening and all through Saturday night and wake up in the morning, and do the same thing again all day Sunday. You got no business going to anybody's place. And just do that forever if you can't think of something constructive to say when you interact with people. We got to change have a whole new culture, really. Because black culture, as it is now, worldwide, is a total failure. We need to examine every part of what we brag about being black culture and inviting other people, and even telling white people they should study black culture. Study for what? In order to gain what? That makes sense. What is it we are doing that's so phenomenal that would attract anybody except somebody who's half high? Or somebody who's looking for a way to get crazier than they already are. We need to examine every element of what we call black culture, including the barbecue in the backyard. What is that supposed to amount to? What's supposed to come out of it? How is a person improved by it? What does the record show about so-called black culture when other people adopt it? Do they become a much better people than they ever would have been without it? I don't see any evidence of it, and maybe somebody can point it out to me. Where is the evidence of the improvement? Going back to what I said again, showing off. Jealousy, that's another one. Part of that nitpicking is comparing, looking around, looking for something to criticize or something to show hostility about because you're jealous. Somebody's got a new piece of furniture in the house and all like that, so you become jealous of it. Or you nitpick about the house is not being kept up. The place looks bad. Well, that's what you came over there for, to criticize people's furniture? Or their lack of it? Or that their housekeeping? That's not what you're ever supposed to go to anybody's place of residence for. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not for 5 minutes. Ever. As long as you're breathing. According to what? According to constructive logic. That's what. Mm-hmm. Which is what we need to use more of. Mm-hmm. And then number 4 is minimize the wasting of time and our energy among non-white people. That should be your ultimate goal, one of the goals, that you're not going to waste any time and energy among non-white people by sitting around talking to them without anything constructive to say. Mm-hmm. And we talk about visiting people now.
Yes.
Now, those are the 4 things.
Okay.
They're on page 176 of the Revised Expanded Edition.
Yes, sir.
Everybody needs to look at it.
Oh, okay.
And that will cut down on some of the shell casings out there in the street on a weekend or on a holiday.
Okay.
Those bullets.
Okay.
Mothers crying. People coming around hugging each other. Balloons and teddy bears. This is predictable foolishness, and it's a characteristic of what we call black culture, and it needs to stop. And one way you can stop it, stop all that nonsense visiting people, having your little dinky parties, because that's what they are, where it's going to wind up being bloodshed, or somebody's going to be angry with somebody else. A whole lot of shouting and cursing in the middle of the street. That needs to stop.
TalkTameItRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are a couple that I'd like to share with you. At the Table with Al Warner, Urban Flow with Dorian Wingard, and Senior Agenda. All these shows are exclusive to TalkTameItRadio.com, and you can go to the TalkTameItRadio.com homepage, click on programs for scheduled times. That's TalkTameItRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. The phone lines are now open. You can call at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Our subject is a continuation in the sixth area of human activity called politics. And before we read a Gmail, Mr. Fuller, you suggested in the notes above what you just read on page 176, and I've gotten a lot of comment about this in the area of sexual activity. You said, quote, by deliberately and mutually limiting the total number of times that sexual intercourse can be enacted in a 7-day period, and then you said no more than 2 times, non-white males and females can greatly improve the quality of constructive communications during their visits with each other. This type of visitation plan will help to decrease the amount of time and energy devoted to acts of sexual intercourse and help to reduce the number of conflicts, misunderstandings, and or unwanted pregnancies that is often associated with the time, place, and circumstance of sexual intercourse. This type of visitation plan may also increase the, quote, pleasures, end of quote, that are usually associated with, quote, well, with mutual sexual intercourse. Some who have commented on that to me were a little confused by that. Can you explain what you meant by that, limiting the amount of sexual contact 2 times a week, and the other information that you delivered in these notes as a suggestion?
Yes, that's listed on the politics, but it's also listed on the economics. And the economics is the use of time and energy. So if you reduce the acts of sexual intercourse to twice a week, that means that all of this marathon sex that sometimes people engage in, black males particularly, in their frustration with not being recognized as men and being treated as boys, we learn at an early age in the Northwestern Hemisphere that one way we express our manhood is to just run from house to house and engage in marathon sexual intercourse. All right, that's an old tradition, part of black culture, you might say. Going around, taking off our shirts and strutting down the street. Sending a sexual message. I'm a sex machine. I'm nonstop sex. Nonstop. Just go from one bed to the other. Just wear out all the beds in the block. Sexual intercourse, sexual intercourse, sexual intercourse. Now, if we discipline ourselves to twice a week, that cuts down on the marathon right there by just reducing the number of times that we engage in it. Now, what does that mean? If you're not engaging in sex, using your time and energy for that, you're going to be using your time and energy doing something else. Now, the something else should be other things of constructive value. I'm not playing down the value of sex. I'm simply saying that when you reduce the number of times to twice every 7 days, then that means just by your own self-discipline, nobody's watching you, looking over your shoulder, or even should be. You just do that yourself. Just say that I'll enjoy it more, and I'll be more selective. Because if you're going to reduce the number of times, you're going to reduce the number of people that you're going to be doing it with, too, most likely. And so that helps. That improves the quality of the act itself. Just twice a week, you'll really enjoy it more. If you're just like anything, I mean, if you're doing anything, riding a train or riding a bicycle, the more you do it, the more boring it becomes and the less value it has to you. But if you do it every now and then, you feel more invigorated. So that's one of the effects. But the main reason is we need to be using time and energy doing other things. And we need to get rid of that old tradition of just trying to say, well, I don't have any way of expressing my manhood, so I'll just try to line up as many females as I can and run through them as many times as I possibly can until I finally just run out. Now, as quiet as it's kept, that's a part of the Northwestern Hemisphere black cultural male tradition. But we need to revise all of our traditions. Why? Because they are traditions of a failed people, of people who are despised because we are very non-constructive in the things that we do. Our culture is failed. Nobody with any sense wants to adopt any part of what we call popular black culture. You might dabble in it. I mean, people dabble in it. White people dabble in it. Let's go to Harlem, and go slumming. That's what they used to call it. Let's go and trash ourselves for a few hours. And where's the best place to do it? Up there where the Negroes are.
Wow.
Go to Harlem in diamonds and pearls. That's white people talking. Let's go up to Harlem. We really want to get trashy. Let's go to Harlem. And for a few hours, we can let our hair down. All right? He made songs about it. At least one or two. But that's what I mean.
Okay. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go, and check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to do some Gmails and then more of your calls on TalkTameAtRadio.com. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com. That app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic this week is politics. In fact, it will be for the next several weeks. We're going to be discussing, have Mr. Fuller discuss politics in the system of racism, white supremacy. And you can get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7 Mr. Bobby. That is BOBBY at gmail.com. Let's go to the Gmails, and I have one here from Dr. Lawson. He says this: is it fair to say the suspected racist white supremacist plan, with the understanding the individual may not see or benefit from their plans, or the conflict, the collective will benefit from generations from it? Mr. Fuller?
I didn't understand that question.
Okay, let me put it this way. Okay, is it fair to say the suspected racist white supremacist plan, with the understanding the individual may not see or benefit from their plans?
Is it fair to think that the individual may not benefit from their plan?
Or even see it, yes.
That's the individual victim.
Yes.
Who has a plan, but they don't see where the plan will benefit them.
That's correct.
Oh, it could be, but that would be not understanding what it is you're trying to do. We should be trying, first of all, what is it we are trying to do? And this is something that everybody should think about when they get up in the morning. What's your ultimate goal? Do you have one? I mean, I have to ask myself that. What's my ultimate goal? What is my reason for being? What is the one thing I'm supposed to be looking forward to, ultimately? The one big thing that I'm looking forward to and being a part of. Well, logically speaking, I concluded some time ago, it took me some years to come to that conclusion. What was I created for? And I came to the conclusion that I'm created to solve problems. What problems? The ones right in front of me. Because I could have been created and put in a situation where I didn't have any problems. But I'm looking at arms, fingers, hands, legs, eyes, ears. Functionally, I assume I have a brain of some type or another that guides me to do this and do that, that tells my hands and feet what to do. Come and go, sit, stand, walk, run, talk. I have some first-class equipment here that was issued to me. How am I supposed to be using all this equipment? Fingernails, eyes, ears, the ability to speak. First-class equipment this is. Created by whatever created this equipment. Some people say God, the Creator, all power, Allah. You know you didn't do it. I know I didn't do it. So there is a creator of what we have here.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, what am I supposed to be doing with all this equipment?
Okay.
Hands, eyes, ears. I'm supposed to be, I came to the conclusion, solving problems. Why? Because I was given problems to solve. Now, we all know that, because I don't know anybody who doesn't have some type of problem that they have to solve. Even people who have a lot of money still have problems. Have problems trying to hold on to it. Have problems trying to maintain their health. They might have a health problem, regardless of the money. So they have to be concerned about that.
Okay.
So, or solve the problems of someone who is kin to them. Everybody has that. They have some type of kin, that is in trouble of some type. A health problem, a money problem, something. Problems that are given to us all the time.
All the time.
But the biggest problem, in my opinion, is the system of racism. So I think that if you have color in your skin, that's the main problem you're supposed to be working on. Why? Because that makes all other problems much bigger than what they ordinarily would be.
All righty. Do we have a phone call? Okay. All right. Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Is this line number 1?
You are now on. You need to. Can we adjust that? Okay. Go ahead. You're now on with Mr. Fuller.
This line number 1. You talking to me?
Yes.
All right. Yes, I would like Mr. Fuller's counter-racist codified response to the incident that took place. I believe it was in Washington State. I could be wrong, with the white male who who was quote unquote making racial torrents towards two non-white, well, at least one of them appeared to be a non-white female that he thought was Muslims, and he ended up stabbing three people. They appeared to be white males. Two of them died. Could Mr. Fuller give us a codified counter-racist response to if that was if anyone, well, just a codified response.
Okay, that was in the state of Oregon, by the way.
Oregon, okay.
Okay, Mr. Fuller.
Well, for one thing, you can expect this to happen anytime. You can expect any type of violence. Racism is about violence. You can expect this at any time, any place. Either a white person attacking non-white people, or non-white people defending themselves, or what you might call counterattacking white people in a system of racism. That's what goes with it. We're on a massive battlefield called the planet Earth. That's all it is. It's just a big battlefield. And there's an ongoing war that's never been resolved. So you can expect death and destruction of all types anywhere at any time. And that includes what black people have been taught, and that is to attack each other in huge numbers, which goes on perennially. And that's going to continue as long as you have this system of racism. That's going to be one of the reactions. People can cry about it. They can get balloons and candles and hang them on every fence. You might as well do that in advance, because you can look forward to just that is going to continue until a major effort is made to at least take some of the increments of racism out of the equation. But it won't disappear until you actually eliminate racism and really seriously work on producing something that's never been really produced by anybody in recorded history, and that is this thing called justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. But if you're riding a subway or a train or an airplane or just walking down the street or going to the grocery store, you can expect anything that shouldn't happen to happen, whether it's by a black person or a white person, because the system of racism breeds this type of activity. That's what it breeds. This constant violence, constant glorification of violence. In fact, the system of racism glorifies violence of all kinds. Most of your books that are bestsellers are about what? Glorifying violence, celebrating violence. So expect anybody to be killed or maimed anywhere at any time, including yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised at anything. That's another thing. Never, ever be surprised at anything happening of any kind that shouldn't happen. And you're in the midst of it. Never, ever be surprised. Never say, well, I'm surprised that something like that would happen here. No, absolutely not. Get out of that frame of mind. You are on a world battlefield 24/7. You can expect ugly things to happen 24/7, nonstop. And when you get a little respite, you hear the birds singing in the trees, and everything's quiet and peaceful, and everybody's kind of talking to each other in a civil manner. Nobody's cursing or shouting. When you're, sitting there looking at your computer, and you hear some voices outside, it's not the sound of somebody cursing somebody out for a change. Just consider that abnormal under the circumstances that have been bred in this system of racism that spread all over the world and caused everybody, white and non-white, to be thoroughly contaminated, including myself.
Yes, sir.
We're contaminated people. We have to get rid of this poison that's in us. It's in all of us. So expect violence to happen at any time.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Somebody jump up and kill their grandmother. I mean, don't be shocked at that.
Mm-hmm.
That goes with the territory.
Goes with the territory. Okay, talktainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Download the talktainmentradio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. On subject today is politics, which we will be on for a few weeks. Don't have any figures on the donations yet. Still working on that. So hopefully by the end of the show or near the end of the show, we can have an updated figure on that. You can call in, though, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Speaking of the Gmails, let's go to this one from GM. GM writes this, putting it all together. Should we consider, quote, white Jesus, end of quote, a racist suspect? Do the white supremacists know more about the Creator, Elohim, more than anyone else? And if so, Mr. Fuller, why do they confuse the masses in order to prevent them, especially black people, from truly knowing the Creator and His name?
Well, the white supremacists' main weapon is what? Deception. They will do anything to deceive their victims, and that's in every area of activity. All of the 9 areas. Economics, they're deceptive. They sell you things that are worthless, and the things that are worth something, I mean, they retain it and don't let you, if it has any constructive value, they hold back on most of that and all like that. And they don't let you use your time and energy in a way that is constructive, and they do that in a very deceptive manner. They'll make you think you have something of value when you don't have. They'll change the value of things that they do give you, so that something that they told you was valuable, once they give it to you, is no longer valuable. Why? Because you now have it. And then it's only when you don't have it, it becomes valuable again, and that keeps you on a treadmill of trying to acquire whatever it is, whether it's a pair of shoes or a house. And so they set the values on everything. That's in economics. And they do this through deception, fooling you, telling you things that are not true. And then you go to education, they'll tell you that this is this, and this is that, and this is the history of this, and this person did this, and this person did that, and then what you should look forward to if you're going to be an educated person and all like that. And they're winking at each other all the time, the whole time they're doing it, because they know that you're going down a blind alley, and that it's nothing at the end of that alley but just a brick wall. But they'll tell you that if you do this and you do that, I will declare that you are now educated and ready to go out into the world and really do great things. Mm-hmm. But they will limit whatever information they give you, because that's what education is, knowing how to solve problems, all right? You can't consider yourself educated and you don't know how to solve a problem, all right? Education is about problem solving, because we are in a universe that's full of problems.
Yes, sir.
That have to be solved minute by minute. But the white supremacists will tell you that you are able to solve problems when you're not. Why? Because they didn't teach you how to solve a problem. Mm-hmm. They pretended that they were teaching you how to solve a problem. We'll slowly begin to get wise to that, but very slow.
Yes, sir.
And then entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, the same thing.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's go to the phone line. What line are we on here? Line number 1? Okay, line number 1, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Could you turn your radio down, please, and ask your question?
All right, that's me?
Yes.
Okay. Good day, gentlemen. I want to start off with that. I want to say I read the book. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I won't be calling with any more questions because I take more of a compensatory mindset in action in the situations I'm dealing in racism for what I can do with white supremacy. I can't do a lot with it, right, from what I see. So, but a couple of things I ain't gonna say I had a problem with. I don't agree with is when the party was saying when you take somebody out or take their life and you have to take your life. And I understand when the system creates monsters and monstrosities. I mean, the wordplay is tight. Can't really argue with the wordplay and how you put the word together is beautiful. But what I'll say about that is I don't believe in taking myself out if I have to take a monstrosity out or a white supremacist out. If this is war, I don't see how you benefit in war if you're going to take out an enemy and then take yourself out. If you're doing something wrong, I say if you go harm somebody and you're wrong in your actions, sure. But if you're being just in anything you do and you take out anyone evil against that, then I feel you shouldn't have to kill yourself in that situation.
Okay.
You have to watch out for Uncle Tom.
Okay. You're breaking up there. Mr. Fuller, you want to address that, please?
Well, if you're talking about any kind of violence or counter-violence, that's up to the person to determine themselves. I have recommendations all through the book about that, and particularly under war. I put any kind of violence or counter-violence that's initiated by a non-white person, and particularly if it means killing someone, how it should be done according to counter-racist logic. Now, self-defense is always in order, direct self-defense. I mean, even animals understand that. You know, fight or flight or whatever. I mean, self-defense. I mean, someone's trying to kill you unjustly or even justly. I mean, you know, you defend yourself as best you can. And if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, then you throw yourself on the mercy of the person because you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. But if you're doing something you should be doing and somebody's trying to kill you for doing it, you directly self-defense yourself. You defend yourself against that type of aggression because that's unjust aggression. But now, all other forms of counter-violence, particularly taking up, making a decision to be counter-violent against the white supremacists, that comes under the 9th area of activity, and it's explained in detail. I do not talk about it on the air other than just point it out under what I call maximum emergency compensatory action.
Yes, that's what he was
speaking to. And I go into detail about that,
mm-hmm.
and I give the reasons and all like that. But I do not talk about it on the air or in conversation, except just to point out that it is in the book, and that there is such a thing in theory that is suggested in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very detailed, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts associated with it. And therefore, it has to be very precise. It has to be, so that it doesn't do what? Cause confusion. Because when you start talking about people killing people, or people doing any kind of bodily harm to people, you should be extremely, extremely, extremely serious and extremely careful. Even in talking about it, extremely careful. Because under the system of racism, the racists consider violence and killing as a form of entertainment. And nothing in counter-racist science, nothing in counter-racist logic should ever be interpreted as a form of entertainment or anything that's enjoyable.
Yes, sir.
Under any circumstance.
Okay.
Where you're going to do bodily harm to someone. Under any circumstance, even in self-defense, you don't glorify it. You don't glorify people who have what you might call soldiers who have done some conquest or captured a hill or something like that. You don't glorify that. Why? Because it involved killing. It involved doing bodily harm to people. You don't glorify it. It's always should be a tragic necessity at the very most.
Okay.
A tragic necessity in any circumstance.
Tragic necessity. Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 2, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Go ahead, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was calling to ask Mr. Fuller the areas of economics, education, and labor. Does he think that's just that controls all other areas? I say this to say because, I listened to some of his past interviews, and he says that the white supremacists will go and study a grain of sand at the bottom of the ocean. And he says that the white supremacists, just in their daily interactions, which is politics, they have something of constructive value to say among each other, interacting among each other. And I just think that economics, education, and labor are the really most important ones for us as non-white people to get in full constructive value, those 3 areas of activity.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Well, if I understand the question, he's saying that economics, education, and you name one other, it's got 3 out of the 9.
Labor, I think it was his last.
Yes, are the most important.
To him.
He can say that, but all areas of activity are interactive. And so I had to cover, that's why I came up with 9 areas. I tried to cover everything that involves people. Some people say that I should have added another one called health. But then I say, if you got those 9 areas, particularly just starting with the first area, economics. Economics is about health. That's why I address it in the way that I do, the use of time and energy. If you use your time and energy correctly, and that includes the eating of food and how you exercise your body and all like that, that's time and that's energy. That's what economics is. That's also what health is, time and energy. How you use your time and how you use your energy. Everything is about timing, the timing of the body, the heart rate, that's time. See, so, so it's all of these areas of activity are interactive. What happens in the area of religion will have an effect on what happens in politics. What happens in the area of politics will affect what happens in the area of economics. What happens in the area of economics will affect what happens in the area of labor. What happens in the area of labor will affect what happens in the area of entertainment. So, and on and on and on. All of these areas are interactive. These are just labels for what people do, for what people are involved in. That's why I call it the 9 areas of people activity.
All righty. You know what? We are at that point. Those who are on the line, hang on, because we are going to close down the first hour, and we will get you on the second hour. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening. Those who are on the line, hang on. We'll pick you up on the second hour.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Hey, welcome back to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. This is TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with the Compensatory Concept, and I'm your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. Interesting topic again this week, which we will continue for the few more weeks. We're talking about politics. So have your questions ready at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me. I won't get to them today, but you can still Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com, and I will at some point or some show get to them. Update on the donations. I understand we're still at $3,800, so we're still $300 short. So hit the donate button and go from there. One of the people that did donate, BW from BW Gifts. BW, I cannot play the video that you sent, but I do, thank you for your input. That's BW from Houston, Texas. But I do thank you for sending that to me. Just send me a question that I can ask Mr. Fuller, and we'll go from there. Okay, Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And I will have him speak to that a little bit later. But right now, I'm going to go to the phone lines. What line am I going to go to? Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. And if you have your radio up, please turn it down. Go ahead. You're on.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
All right, sir. Good morning.
The question is, if a person is considered a juvenile from the age of 5 to 17 and they kill someone, should they too be required to take themselves out of this world?
Mr. Fuller?
Oh, well, yes, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you don't have any business killing people. That should be universal. You don't have any business killing people except in self-defense. Or if you're going to take initiative, even for political reasons or for whatever reason, you're going to take the initiative to go and seek out to kill someone in this war, this continuing war and whatnot, you should have such a regard for people who are created not by you, because nobody creates people. We go through the motions of doing the things that will see to it that people get here, but we don't have a guarantee that, that a lady will become pregnant simply because you have sexual intercourse. I mean, that's something that's still, we call it a miracle. We call it something that we still don't understand. It's logical that we wouldn't understand that, because we don't understand the universe even, the origin of things. We try to claim that we do sometimes, but to know the origin of things, you have to know the origin of everything that ever existed. I mean, when was space created? Can anybody that is breathing now actually say with accuracy that they know when space was created? Or like the little boy who asked his mother when they were talking about the Creator, talking about God. The little boy asked his mother a logical question. Said, "Mommy, who made me? Who made me?" And the mother said, "Oh, God made you, of course." And the little boy thought for a moment and said, "Who made God?" See, these are questions that are kind of scary when you really start asking questions, okay? And, and most people, in answer to that question, I mean, is mind your own business, just take my word for it and leave it alone and stop asking so many questions. And that's always something that shouldn't be done. But we do know that we're here. And we do know that we're supposed to be doing things while we are here. And so one of the things we should take into consideration, and like I've said throughout this entire program this morning, that when you start talking about taking into consideration killing somebody, killing one person, killing another person for whatever reason, that is real serious business. But we take it for granted that people killing people. Just open the newspapers. 38 people killed this morning, in an altercation of some type. 2,000 people killed in a flood. Turn the page, ho-hum. What's next? People dying, people killing. We just take that as being something that's nothing. And the white supremacists foster that type of thinking. They believe in, when they are getting into a fight, everybody just want to know what? The body count. What was the body count? That's what they call it, the body count.
Yes, sir.
They say, well, only 10 people were killed in that little, skirmish that we had last. Just 10? We got equipment here that's geared up to kill thousands. Don't ever come back here talking about just 10 were killed. Run up those numbers. Those numbers look good. That's entertainment. And so in response to the question, that's a broad answer, but I'm saying this business about killing, we should take that very, very seriously. One person being killed by another. The world should be right now, right this minute, in a state here in 2017 where if one person tells another person that a person killed somebody 40 years ago, nobody should believe it. They say, are you kidding? You mean to tell me one person now killed another person? A person killed another person 40 years ago? That's the way we should be talking now. Mm-hmm. And say, yeah, I heard that, the guy shoved a guy off a cliff in Australia 40 years ago. And everybody should say, see, this guy's always spreading rumors. You've been saying that for some time now. You ought to stop saying that. People stopped killing each other, eons ago. 10,000 years ago, people stopped doing that, man. That's old hat. People used to do that stuff. That used to be a big deal. Nobody does nothing stupid like that anymore. Nobody. And you're telling me somebody did it 40 years ago. Get out of my barbershop. Don't come back in here talking that kind of talk. You might put that on somebody's mind. Somebody might actually go out and kill somebody behind that kind of talk. Nobody even talks like that anymore. Now, I'm just giving that little illustration to say this is the way we should be talking right now.
Okay, yeah, should be talking, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I understand that because I was getting ready to say when I lived in New York for a little while, that was not the case. Somebody, particularly in the Bed-Stuy area, Bedford-Stuyford area, somebody got threw off a roof almost every day. It was crazy. But anyway, that was it. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number what? What are we on? Line number 2? Okay, line number 2.
Good morning.
You are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bobby. I am Chikoro. I'm calling from France.
Okay.
Yes, and I have a question for Mr. Neely Fuller. I would like to know how he became who he is because, I discovered him in March. Mm-hmm. And, I looked a little bit at his background and things like that, and I know he's old. And, I'm trying to listen to all of your shows and things like that, and to give the information out to other black people because the confusion among black people is at its maximum.
Yeah, confusion among black people. Yes, okay. So you want to know how Mr. Fuller got started or what now?
Yes, how he became who he is right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, he wanted to know how did you become who you are.
Oh, I don't know who I am. I'm trying to get an identity. I'd like to be a universal man. But right now, the only thing that I am is just a victim of white supremacy. I put that on the cover of the book. My book is entitled, the supplementary title is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, and racism is white supremacy. So that's who I am. I've never been anybody else. That's my standard identity. I don't have an identity other than that. I'm a prisoner of war. I was born in a prison called the planet Earth, and everybody of color is in that prison, in the system of white supremacy. According to what? According to all the evidence. I'm just going by the evidence. So I was born a prisoner of war. I'm a victim of white supremacy, and that's my badge. That's my title. I don't have a title other than that. And so I became that just by somebody doing it. Somebody deciding that they were going to start a thing called racism, and it turned out to be the strongest government in the world, and the only government in the world that's worthy of being called a government. All other so-called governments are just labels. So the system of white supremacy is the government of the world. And what is the system of white supremacy? It means that if you're classified as white, you're eligible to dominate and mistreat people who have been classified by the white supremacists as non-white. Dominate and mistreat. That's what it's about in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, if I am to have an identity, it is victims of that system and a person who slowly began to recognize that that was the dominant government. Now, a lot of people would disagree with that, but I say if you study the evidence, it's all around you. Pick out economics. The non-white people, in the use of their time and energy, are beholden to who? To white people, not all white people, but to the white people who believe in white supremacy. If they start talking about economics and start talking about the use of time and energy, or the use of, definitely, the use of money, they have to answer to the white supremacists. The white supremacists determine the value of money. Why? They determine the value of people. See, once you get people under your thumb, whatever money those people have is your money. Why? Because the people are your people. You dominate them. You tell them what to do. So once you get mastery over people, you have mastery over everything that those people claim is theirs, which means those people are really now prisoners of yours. And I say we're prisoners of war because that's a form of war. Mm-hmm. When you take everything from somebody, from a person, and everything that that person wants or needs, they have to come to you.
Okay.
So you're a prisoner, and you're a slave.
Okay.
And so that's what I am. That's how I came to be that.
Okay.
I was that when I was born, because I was already in prison when I was born. The prison called the system of white supremacy.
Okay. My brother from France, you can't get that book, Mr. Fuller's book over there. Is that correct?
Yes, but I study in the U.S., so I plan to buy it, next semester because I come here for holiday in France. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I discovered him. I live in Texas usually. I'm in Austin usually.
Okay. All righty.
Yes.
Hey, thank you so much for your call, though. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, I like the show, too. I'm listening live right now. Thank you very much.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah, take care.
All righty. You take care, too. Okay. Let's go here. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide, as you can tell by this phone call that we got from France, broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several shows that I'd like to share with you. One is This is Libby, The John Coates Show, and then New Money. All these shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage, click on programs for their scheduled times, a little bit about the host, all that from TalkTameRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic is politics, the sixth area of people activity. And if you've been into the show, you've heard a lot of calls and a lot of people saying things concerning that, and Mr. Fuller has been explaining that. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Let's go to the Gmails, and let's do this from Mr. Jordan. He says, Mr. Fuller, as black males, should we try to avoid even hugging white women?
Black males? Well, hug them for what reason? Okay? See, when you do something, you have a reason for doing it. So what's your purpose for hugging anybody? All right? You're sending a message of some type, and what does that message mean, I guess? So the person doing the hugging should be able to explain the hugging. That's the way that works. That's the compensatory way. When anybody does anything, they should be explained why they are doing what they're doing if they're doing it deliberately. Now, if they're forced to do it, that's something else. But the person who willfully and deliberately does anything, picking up a pencil, catching a bus, talking to someone, hugging someone, shaking someone's hand, it's something you're deliberately doing. So you should be able to explain why you're doing it and what the constructive result is supposed to be. That's the bottom line. In anything that anybody does, any minute of the day, anywhere on the planet, what is the constructive result supposed to be? If you're cursing somebody out, what is the constructive result? What do you expect the constructive result to be? Is it going to produce a constructive result? So if a black male hugs a white woman, what is going to be the constructive result of that hugging?
Yes.
It's going to be a result of some type.
Yes.
So, you just look at it and see what the result is. Where is it going to lead?
You have to ask that question. What is the constructive result?
Not only that, and watch the result. I mean, that's how you know. I mean, everything is going to have a result. See, so, is that the beginning of something, or is that the end of something, or does that have any significance at all? You don't know until you find out what the result is. What effect did it have? What effect did it have on the person doing the hugging, and what effect did it have on the person being hugged?
Or why are you doing that?
Yes, and what is going to be the result when that white lady walks away? I just been hugged, rather than mugged,
yeah,
by this black male, all right? So what am I supposed to do as a result of having been hugged by this black male? If you're going to do something, you're going to say something, or you're going to think something, or something. But what's going to be the constructive result? That's what anybody should want to know about anything. When you sit down to eat a meal, what's going to be the constructive result?
In this system of racism, white supremacy.
Yes. Always.
Always.
Because that's the system that you're in.
Yes, sir. Okay. Dr. B said this, Mr. Fuller, I've researched this, and drugs are bad any way you look at it, but don't be fooled. Drugs are a multi-billion-dollar business ran by the oligarchy of countries around the world. It's a total criminal conspiracy. There's no profit in eliminating it. The countries would lose too much money. By the way, if you're in the market for a car, try to find out where it was assembled. I don't know what that means, but Mr. Fuller, your thoughts on that?
Well, if you're talking about drugs, that's obvious that the white supremacists, like they're in control of everything that has something to do with non-white people. So drugs of all types, including, drugs that are supposed to be medicine.
Oh, you mean prescription drugs?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I mean, a lot of it, sometimes people, and I'm just going by what I hear,
okay,
and what I've been told sometimes directly, that this is not good for you. I mean, this is killing you. And I'll say, well, it's a prescription drug. Say, yeah, but your metabolism is not made for this. But, oops, we just discovered it because it's not doing what it should do. It's doing something else. And so, and it brings to wonder now how much of this is going on worldwide, including people who are being told that let me vaccinate you, let me inoculate you with this drug because this will prevent such and such disease.
Yes.
When it just could be that they're giving you another disease. All right? It'll get rid of the symptoms of what they're supposed to be getting rid of, and at the same time damaging you in some other way. The white supremacists are good at that.
Yes, sir.
And that's why they, you can suspect. See, I can't say it for a fact, but anything that has to do with non-white people, the white supremacists are always trying to do something harmful.
Yes, sir.
You can bet that.
Okay.
So if they'll come in and say, look, take this medicine. This is not a harmful drug. This is medicine. This will cure you of this, that, and the other. But you can always suspect, yes, it will cure me of three things, and it will harm me in 7 other ways.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
They are good at that.
Yeah.
You can expect that. But what you can do about it, just be suspicious of it and try to do the best you can.
Yes, sir.
Because just like the caller said, they're doing this all over the world.
Yes, sir.
They're coming around with needles and pills and whatnot, and you don't know what's going on.
Yes, sir. Let's go to the phone lines. What line are we going to? Line number 1? Okay. You now are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Okay, Mr. Fuller, here's my question. You said last week that the ultimate goal of people should be constructive behavior, speaking particularly of the black community. Well, here's the question. How can black people be constructive when the people who you refer to as the white supremacists control the education system? They control the education system and they control the media. And when they control the education system, they control the media. Those two tools are used to control the way people think and behave. So, I mean, how can we get off from underneath? How can we change our behavior when they control the education system?
Okay. All right. Mr. Fuller?
Straight answer. By talking just the way we're talking now. That's it. They allow us to do that. Now, at a certain point, when it starts taking effect, you can expect them to stop us from doing that. Us meaning what I'm doing right now. The reason the white supremacists, logically speaking, allow Neely Fuller to say the things that he's saying is because they don't look at Neely Fuller. The white supremacists learned a long time ago, before I was born. You don't have to pay attention to a spokesperson, a person that's speaking. Pay attention to the reaction of the people who are listening. And if the people who are listening are not changing anything that they are doing, so what? See, the white supremacists are pure scientists. They are very scientific people. They don't let their emotions dominate the science like non-white people do. We get fired up on emotion and forget all about logic. The white supremacists are surgical in their thinking. That's why they're successful at every move they make.
Wow.
And it has the non-white people.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they walk into a place and they will see a speaker, a black speaker, talking to thousands of people.
Okay.
But they'll listen to the black speaker for a few minutes, but mostly they study the reaction of the people who are listening. And if the people who are listening all file away, all walk away, and do not change, as a result of what was said, the white supremacists say business as usual.
So you're saying they studied the reaction of those people?
They study the reaction of the people who are listening. They don't care anything about the speaker at all. You know, the black people applaud, you know, black speakers all over the place. And as far back as there have been black spokesperson or black, what we call black leaders, which is really a misnomer, you know. But black people speak all the time. Neely Fuller is speaking. So what? If nobody listens and acts on what he's saying, the white supremacists do not care. They don't care how many radio programs you have, how many TV programs. You can just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
Well, wait.
But if black people still hold on to what I started this program with, hold on tenaciously to what we call black culture. The white supremacists said, I invented black culture. That's what the white supremacists say. Black culture is nothing but a reaction to me. That's all it is. And it's a very sorry reaction. It has 4 components.
Oh, okay.
Primitive, pitiful, stupid, and are silly.
Okay. Let me ask you this then, because you just made that statement. What about the effects of, let's say, Dr. Martin Luther King or the effects of Malcolm X? I mean, how does that play into it? Did they not listen to them, but garnered on the reaction of the people who followed, people who listened to Dr. King or Malcolm X?
Excellent question. Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, 2 people you named.
Yes.
What happened to them?
They got killed.
You better believe it. That's what happens to anybody who starts taking effect.
Okay.
Now, everybody who's still breathing, including Neely Fuller, they ain't effective. All right? They kill you when you're effective.
I got you, yeah.
All right. I mean, in other words, Neely Fuller is supposed to be digging his grave. As long as he's breathing, he knows that he's not effective, because the white supremacists will take you out of here in a minute. I mean, they got millions of ways of doing it, not just 1 or 2. I mean, there are a few people that didn't even get off the ground, like Patrice Lumumba.
Yes.
I mean, it didn't last no time.
No.
All right? Why? Because the Congo is real important to the white supremacists.
Ooh-wee.
And they don't ever intend, anytime soon, apparently, for anything constructive to happen among the black people in what we call the Congo. And they didn't waste no time getting rid of Patrice Lumumba.
No.
And even the person that helped him to get rid of Patrice Lumumba. And that was Moise Tshombe. He didn't last suddenly got cancer. See, talking about chemical warfare or whatever, or disease warfare. Moise Tshombe suddenly got cancer out of nowhere. And I think that's happened to several other people.
Yes. Mr. Fuller, you just dropped a bomb right there. Woo! TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Wow. Stay right there. We're going to have more of Mr. Fuller. He's going to drop some more bombs. All that and more on TalkTameAtRadio.com. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablets. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, an excited Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our subject today is politics, which we will continue. The call-in number is 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. I'm going to try to contain myself. A lot of people have written in about that, and I'm trying to adhere to that. But Mr. Fuller dropped the bomb in the last segment about Patrice Lumumba, the Congo, and all that, and that just excites me because of the history that I know about that, and particularly about King Leopold of Belgium, probably or arguably the worst criminal murderer in the whole world that you never heard about because they didn't put that in the history books. But Mr. Fuller, since you opened up that door and went there. A lot of people don't know or don't understand the importance of the Congo. And you mentioned Lumumba and his successor. Could you, since you know about this or know of it a little bit, can you expound on that a little bit to update people on information that you knew about the Congo and what happened?
Well, as Will Rogers would say, all I know is what I read in the papers. So at the time, in the 1960s, I just read that in the papers, that the Congo was a huge place, a landmass, with a lot of minerals of all types, and still is.
Yes.
And that the people who believe in white supremacy went in there a long time ago and took over, and that they said, hey, nobody's going to mess with this place but us. And anybody who wants to change things, even raise the so-called quote-unquote living standards of the people who are here, they can forget about that. That's not happening. We're going to keep them in turmoil, keep them fighting each other like we do among non-white people everywhere, among black, brown, red, and yellow people, among the Indians, I mean, all the tribes and whatnot. Most people are divided into tribes or families or conglomerations of so-called families and whatnot. So we'll just keep them at each other's throats. And that'll be one way. That's the main way that we do it. That way we don't have to be bothered with them. We just give one tribe some guns and tell them to go and take care of the other tribe. I mean, and while they are busy doing that, we'll just grab everything in sight. And we have found that that's a formula that works everywhere all the time. Mm-hmm. To keep the people in turmoil. Starve out one group of people and then give another group of people plenty of food. And so the people who are starving, they will go after the people who have the food. And we'll set all that up. That way they won't be watching us while we grab everything of value, mm-hmm. while they're slaughtering each other, or starving to death, or a combination of both. And it's a formula that has worked very well. It works everywhere, all the time. And from what I understood at the time, they just did that in the Congo and every other place. And long before they had even picked the Congo as that type of place that was going to have its so-called independence. But then there were individuals, like they already predict that. There'll always be some individuals, like a Patrice Lumumba and whatnot, that will stand up at a podium and start saying, well, this shouldn't be.
Right.
We need to get rid of this. I mean, we shouldn't treat each other like this and all like that. Talking about justice and all that other stuff mm-hmm. that the white supremacists themselves talk about, all right? And they'll listen for a while, and they'll see if it's having an effect. And if it looks like it's going to have an effect that's bad for their business, their criminal enterprise,
yes,
then they just, what you call, make a hit on the people who are causing the bad for business equation, like gangsters do.
Yes, sir.
They put a hit on people who they think may be a potential danger, you know. And if it doesn't seem like the person is being listened to, though, if the person is just talking and the person is not being listened to and nothing is happening, everybody's going about their day-to-day whatever, then they just say, hey, we figured that out a long time ago.
But Lumumba was effective, is that correct?
It seemed like he had the potential of being effective at that time. And I don't think, I think they had already figured that in the long run he wouldn't be, but he could cause problems immediately.
Well, they killed him?
Yes, but they figured that they didn't want to put up with the immediate problem.
Okay.
All right? See, because they can kill you anytime they get ready.
Yes, sir.
Which is what they do. And black people who think that they can hide somewhere from the white supremacists, forget that. Once you get on their hit list, you're gone. There's no place on this planet, and nobody who can protect you.
And what about Morrissey?
How's that?
What about Morrissey? You said the guy that came after?
Morrissey Shumby.
Oh, Shumby, okay.
Well, like always, they always get a certain number of black people up to help to make problems for the black person who is really trying to get something done constructive.
Yes, sir.
That goes with the territory. So you really don't blame them, because they always do that. They can always do that. In the Northwestern Hemisphere, sometimes they make heroes or heroines out of. Like when you think of Indian ladies, you think of what? You think of Pocahontas. I mean, everybody. That's who I think of. I can't think of any other Indian lady other than Pocahontas. Why? Because directly or indirectly, the white supremacists tell me that's the only Indian lady worth mentioning.
Such a
all the Indian ladies that may have existed or that exist now. The only one that you can mention is Pocahontas. Why? Because Pocahontas spoke up for, in behalf of Captain John Smith, a white settler, that was his label, and John Rolfe. And Pocahontas, who was an Indian lady, went to her father, who was a chief, and said, these people are all right. They don't mean us any harm. They treat me real nice. They talk to me real nice. They treat me like they treat white women. They treat me better than they treat a lot of white women. I mean, they took me all overseas, where they came from, and wined and dined me. Daddy, they are all right. I'm telling you, they are not the type of people you think they are. You want to kill Captain John Smith. Don't do that. Don't have any hostility toward him at all. He's a nice person. He means us well. We will really go places with these people that we have welcomed among us here in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
And so everybody knows how that played out.
Yeah, really.
Nobody can find remnants now of Miss Pocahontas and her chief father and all of the descendants.
Okay.
They are now what? Beggars, like the rest of the non-white world.
Yeah, real nice people. Let's go to the phone lines. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Just looking at Mr. Fuller, as we see what white supremacy racism has done to, like say, people of color. Like I said, if you're of any color, ultimately, do you think we should be working toward possibly a military solution within the context of knowing what white supremacy do to people of color, that we should be trying to come up with some kind of, equal thing of force to say, if you attack us again, we'll have the capability of of annihilating you. If you try to, if we get to the point where, like I said, we have the potential to do to you what you've done to us.
Mr. Fuller?
Well, that wouldn't be the objective. The objective is to replace a system that never should have existed with a system that should have existed since the beginning of time and has never existed in recorded history, and that's a system of justice. Now, how do we get there? That's why I wrote my book. Now, you say, what can we do about it, or what we should, how should we be militant about it or set up a military system? Well, what do you mean by military? Military means political. It means economics. See, military doesn't stand alone. Military means you are militant. Militant in doing what? In using your time and energy. Basically, that's it. So I have 9 areas of activity here in a book that tells the individual person. That's why I'm saying you solve the problem of the individual person, and you can solve the problems of all people. That's just the logic. That's the mathematics. Solve the problems of each individual person in the most constructive manner, and you will solve the problem of all people in the constructive manner. By doing what? By the use of your time and energy, by things that you do and things that you don't do. That's all problem solving is. That's all becoming powerful is. Things that you do and things that you don't do. Now, I want to make that real simple but real concise in such a way that people can, you can frame it in your mind in a way that you can actually act on it. Everything that's successful is simple in two things: doing and not doing. That's it. It's nothing else. Things that you do and things that you don't do. We need a code of things that you do and that you don't do as an individual person. And that will be the solution to all of this problem and all of the smaller problems other than racism.
Yes, sir.
Doing and not doing. Things that you do. List the things that you do. And then list the things that you don't do. Based on what? Based on what the constructive result or the non-constructive result will be. There are things that everybody does that's non-constructive. There are things that everybody does that are sometimes constructive. All right? What you do is separate the constructive from the non-constructive. That's all a successful code is, that's designed to wind up with the result that should be. And we haven't a code that we have followed. All we really need is a code, and I've tried to write one, a guide for one. It doesn't include everything that a person does or doesn't do, but it's a guide to get us started, and that will do it. I'm confident that will do it, since it's a law of the universe.
Yes, sir.
Everything is a matter of doing and not doing. Doing and not doing. Things that you do, things that you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes things that you say and things that you don't say.
Yes,
and each and every day, you're doing something or you're not doing something. And that determines how that day is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
What you do and what you don't do during that day will determine how that day is going to end and how the next day is going to begin.
TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. as we're about to wrap up the show. The topic is politics, which will be for the next few weeks. So if you'd like to join in on the conversation, the phone lines are open. You can, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. Speaking of, you mentioned Pocahontas. There was also a lady, I don't know if you heard of her, Mr. Fuller, Sacagawea, who was a Shawnee woman who helped Lewis and Clark with their expedition to achieve its chartered mission objective in exploring the great state of Louisiana. So there wasn't that many, but she was another one of those people that were mentioned. This Gmail comes from Rope Dog. He says this, greetings, Mr. Fuller. I am currently responding to an employee survey from my employer. There was a question which states, are you an individual with a disability? I answered yes. Why? Because I consider to be disabled by the system of racism, white supremacy. Mr. Fuller, would you consider my response to be correct or incorrect?
Absolutely correct. Disabled, not able to do the things that need to be done. Why? Because the races won't allow you to do it. If you're going to do anything constructive, if you got color in your skin, the races are alarmed right there. Just a simple thing like a black person trying to do something constructive. The racists become alarmed at that. You got a black person on this planet who is making an attempt to do something of constructive value? Are you kidding me? On my planet? Without my permission? going to do something constructive and the person is black? Oh, no. Now, a black person can do something constructive if I order them to do so, but I can't have black people doing anything constructive on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's revolutionary. I mean, that is obscene. That is intolerable. We can't have that because of what? Because the system of white supremacy is not supposed to help support a black person doing or even thinking about doing anything that's going to have a constructive effect, unless it's going to be in support of white supremacy, which has a non-constructive effect on people of color.
Yes, sir. Wow. Okay. Let's go to the Gmails again. This is from Mirto from the so-called French Guiana, where there's a lot of turmoil going down that you will not hear on the national network news. Here is my question again. He says, according to the code, Mr. Fuller, what do you mean by, quote, he has no contact with anybody except himself, end of quote. What is the logic behind this statement in a practical manner?
That he has no...
Talking about you, he said that he has no, he says contract, but I think he means contact. He has no contact with nobody except with himself, end of quote. Then he says, what is the logic behind this statement in a practical manner?
Oh, that's an ambition. I mean, that I guess, I don't know, I don't know what context that was or what page I have that on and whatnot in the code book, but I believe in being in contact with people all the time, as long as those contacts have a constructive result. See, that's what I advocate for everybody. That's what it's all about. That's what the whole book is about. Contacting any person, white or non-white, at any time, in order to produce what? A constructive result. Now, otherwise, you're not supposed to be having contact with anybody if it doesn't produce a constructive result. That's just the logic. If everybody listening to this just stops and think about it, suppose every contact that you had with every person produced a constructive result for yourself and for them, underline the word constructive now, or for both of you, or for one or the other, without having any non-constructive effect on anybody. Now, you can't ask for anything better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be your goal.
Okay.
Every day, everybody that you talk to, everybody that you say good morning to or whatever, everybody that you contact with on the job and whatnot, constructive result. Use those two words, constructive result. And just you can even ask the question in a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, is this going to produce a constructive result, what we're doing right now? This thing that we're talking about doing, is the result going to be constructive or non-constructive?
Okay.
Does anybody know? Does anybody have an idea? Let's hear some ideas about, know, because it's got to be one or the other.
Yes, sir.
And every contact you make with anybody, even for 5 minutes or 10 seconds, is supposed to produce a constructive result. Mm-hmm. Like this conversation I'm having right now on the air. I mean, I may not be producing a constructive result, but you better believe that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm in violation right there.
Okay.
If I'm not producing a constructive result.
All righty. Let's go to this Gmail from England, Dr. McKen. He says this, Mr. Fuller, I've listened to countless numbers of your interviews and broadcasts and found them to be extremely constructive. I have to admit that both you and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing have helped me change my worldview immensely. However, something recently popped into my mind that I would like you to comment upon. You have often said that the reason that black people have the problems that we have globally is because black culture doesn't have a purpose. Henceforth, it dawned on me that our global political ideology should be counter-racism, and from that ideology will grow a global purpose, which is to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. But in order to fulfill that purpose, black people must first adhere to a code of conduct. One particular broadcast, you named several former black spokespeople, such as Dr. King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, etc., as being examples of people who fought against the system of white supremacy. And you went on to say, whenever we are fighting against racism, we are at best, and certainly agree, and I certainly agree with you in that regard. I do not see anything else on this planet right now that black people should be putting their energies into other than replacing the white supremacy with a system of justice. By the way, keep up the good work. It is greatly appreciated. Your comment, please.
That's the gentleman's evaluation.
Yes, sir.
And just briefly, I would say that I agree with it. But even if someone calls in and says something I disagree with, that would come under VGQ. A person, any victim of racism, any person of color, is guaranteed the duty. You guarantee yourself the duty to say whatever you think will be best to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. And I made up a term that covers that called victims guaranteed qualification. You, just by being a prisoner of war, being a victim of racism, guarantees you the qualification to say, to advance any viewpoint that you have. I'm just saying that generally to the whole world audience now. I mean, that's a given. For any non-white person to say anything that he or she chooses to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism, meaning saying whatever you want to against racism. Why? Because you're a victim of it. And nobody should be a victim of racism. So you automatically, by being a prisoner of war of the racist, you have a duty to say anything about your status as a victim or anybody else's status as a victim. You can express your opinion, and you should express your opinion.
Yes, sir.
Because you're talking about something that shouldn't exist in the first place, and that is this thing called racism.
Before we go, could you quickly speak to your book in the remaining minute that we have there?
Oh, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com. And like I said, I want to reiterate, the book is directed to the individual person so that you can codify the things that you do, the things that you don't do, the things that you say, the things that you don't say, that theoretically should produce a constructive result in your prisoner of war status. And you can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. We'll try to do better the next time. Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.